It's good to be live with you. Happy Monday. So, we're going to update you today on the FDA's plan for your baby, your toddler, your preschooler. Guess what? The White House and FDA have coordinated allocating enough of your taxpayer dollars to make sure there's a new mRNA shot in the arm of every infant as soon as things get authorized later this month. So FDA is going to meet open-mindedly later this month to kind of look over the evidence and decide. But the White House is so confident that they know that this needle is a go, that they have already allocated enough money to give a free dose to every single infant, toddler, and preschooler out there. So we're going to jump into the latest on that, as well as a few other needle-related FDA meetings this month that you can tune into. They're going to be live streaming those FDA meetings. We're also going to talk about the latest WHO shenanigans, as well as the fact that tens of thousands of chickens were just killed in a giant factory fire. Yes, those food plant and factory fires are continuing. We'll catch you up to date on that. Tons of new wrongful death lawsuits in New York City related to the pandemic. And CDC says we got to raise the alarm about monkeypox up to level 2. What does level 2 mean? We're going to jump into all the details. First, shout out to the sponsor of my coverage. Crime in LA is the worst it's been in decades. Many residents are frightened for their safety. New reports reveal a record 41% of LA residents are extremely worried about the crime happening in their area, and they have a right to be concerned. In just 2021 alone, homicides increased by a shocking 12%. This isn't just an LA problem, it's a nationwide plague. Violent crime like murder and robbery are spiking across the country. Unfortunately, many cities like Los Angeles and New York don't let residents carry guns, but luckily there are alternatives that many say they're quite effective. Introducing the Fighter Flare flashlight. It's a tactical, multi-use, ultra-bright flashlight designed for self-defense. Anyone from an experienced veteran to a 95-year-old grandma can use the Fighter Flare ultra bright strobe light to defend themselves from crime. It's highly rated by self-defense experts for a reason. Give dad the gift of night protection this Father's Day. Click the link below in my description or go to www.fighterflareflashlight.com. Then enter the coupon code FATHER20 for an extra 20% off during checkout. Code FATHER20, fighterflareflashlight.com, link down below. I took this thing down to the border for my immigration coverage, and it was much brighter than any flashlight out there. As far as shining all the way across the Rio Grande into Mexico, we could see the migrants swimming on through with this extremely bright flashlight. And look at that pointy glass breaker. All kinds of good features on this. Anyway, yeah, what's up, guys? I see you saw my bestie, Yelena, aka Willy Wonka, on my Instagram. The Russian. My best friend is a Russian, and she has been on previous podcasts, but she's already left town, so I couldn't have her on my podcast today. Unfortunately, we'll have to get her back on soon. She has a lot of intel on what the heck is going on over in Russia. And, just be aware, Putin is a big time propagandist, just like all the other government leaders. And it's been very interesting to see a lot of people convert to pro-Putin. I'm not saying I'm pro-Ukraine either. I'm just saying don't be so gullible about who's the good guy and the bad guy in these situations. Putin enacts a lot of tyranny on his own people. So just be aware. Yelena, Willy Wonka, her whole family is still over there, and they're under that regime. And Putin is not a benevolent, wonderful guy. Okay, just be aware of that. Okay, so jumping into FDA, get this. So the FDA illness needles for children under age 5 to begin as early as June 21st, the White House says, according to NBC. Now, the FDA has a meeting scheduled to figure out if these needles are a good idea based on the study that happened. But the White House is already putting out bulletins saying, nope, we're going to start administering this. We've already allocated dollars. NBC reports the White House needle response coordinator said that the Biden administration will initially make 10 million doses of the two different mRNA company needles available to states, pharmacies, and community health centers. States can begin placing orders on Friday, as in this past Friday, but the needle dose will ship only after the FDA authorizes the needle. It's just so interesting to me how much pressure both the White House and the needle company are putting on the FDA to just get this approval. FDA is already an arm of the White House, but it's supposed to be the separate review agency. But every time one of these needle companies brings their latest research to the forefront, they always get ahead of the narrative. Before the FDA even looks at anything, the needle company puts out a big press release to the media saying, hey, we've got some wonderful results we can't wait for the FDA to look at. And the media just runs with that, with all these positive headlines, putting more pressure on the FDA to be like, okay, there's all this positive publicity already, so you better just authorize this new needle, okay, regardless of what the intricate details and footnotes of those studies actually say. Let me show you the FDA schedule. I actually linked it down in my description. FDA, so this is FDA.gov 2022 meeting materials for the Needle and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee. So here it is, June 14th through 15th is their plan for little kids, but they've got several different meetings scheduled this month, including one tomorrow. So they're going to the committee will meet to in open session to discuss an emergency use authorization request for Novavax for a needle to prevent the illness in individuals 18 and older. So Novavax is allegedly supposed to follow the more traditional needle route rather than the new mRNA technology. They have links to watching the live stream of that yesterday, or tomorrow. The live stream is going to begin at 8:30 a.m. Eastern as FDA looks at evidence for whether to authorize Novavax. And then after that, the following week, next week, it says that they're going to look at administration of the primary series to infants and children 6 months to age 5, and also discuss amending the EUA of the needle company, the needle, to authorize the administration of a primary series to infants and children ages 6 months through 4 years. So they're talking about Moderna and Pfizer there. And then June 28th, the committee will meet in open session to discuss whether and how the new strains of the illness composition for the needle should be modified. So I think that one on June 28th is going to be pretty important, because they're looking at, this is a constantly evolving illness, and they want to be able to throw new ingredients in the needle if they need to very quickly, which could be, it's just putting a lot of trust in a pharmaceutical company for the FDA to say, yeah, it's okay to throw in new ingredients to these needles all the time, as we have a constantly evolving strains of the illness. Now, the meeting to authorize for little kids happened, or it was supposed to happen in February, and last minute the FDA delayed that until June. And I'm wondering, why exactly would they delay authorization of the needle that long? The FDA says the goal was to understand if 2 doses would provide sufficient protection, but now they want to see if 3 doses will be right. And I guess that's why they delayed things, because they want to see if maybe 3 doses are the best way to protect little kids. This is all very strange, as if you look at the actual numbers associated with little kids' illnesses and deaths, they are, this is not an illness that affects little kids. And the FDA has already come forward saying, oh yeah, by the way, these needles don't even inhibit the transmission of this illness. So all the needles do, according to FDA, is reduce your symptoms a little bit. So why would you even give this to a little kid? Because their symptoms are already mild to begin with. It is insanely rare for a little kid to end up either being hospitalized or dying. I've linked this website here down below as well, where deaths are actually broken down by age. So according to this, between January 2020 and the end of May of 2022, 1 million people died of the new illness. Okay. The amount of kids under 1 year old who died of the new illness in the past nearly 2.5 years was just under 300. So out of 1 million people, it is just under 300, and it's unclear if those infants died of the illness or with the illness. CDC is great at not differentiating that. Okay. So that is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of 1%. It is almost impossible for a child to die of this illness, yet they want to give the kids the needle. And CDC is including a giant list of effects that may or may not be positive that can happen to your body. I'm using code words because I'm not allowed to talk about this on YouTube, but bad things that could happen to a child's body if they take this needle. Okay. So why would you give this needle when there's this huge list of potential bad things that could happen from getting the needle? Okay. Those bad things that could happen are allegedly pretty rare themselves. But when your child basically has no chance of dying or even being hospitalized, why would you put them through that with this new needle technology? Of course, the needle companies are going to put this technology forward because it's a moneymaker for them. Okay. And it's very clear the FDA, the needle companies, the White House, and the media are all in cahoots together. Okay. Again, all the pharmaceutical ads on TV, the media is bought and paid for by these needle companies. So all the media is going to do is pair it with the needle companies say. They're not going to look at this level-headedly and say, is this even necessary? And for some reason, the White House has already bought enough needles to stick one in every arm of a little kid. Okay, now the hospitalizations, I also linked this down below, hospitalizations from the new illness by age, and that tiny, I don't know if you can see this, but the tiny yellow line on the top is ages 0 to 4, which is the kids whose parents, parents who are watching the mainstream media, they'll be lining their kids up to get this needle. Because basically, our culture over the years has just been so conditioned to trust pharmaceuticals, trust what doctors recommend, to trust what the media says, and to just, well, if they say to go get this thing in my arm, I'm not going to think about why or why not. I'm just going to trust that I should go get this thing in my arm. I've heard some media mentions of this, so I'm just going to go do it. But the need for it is basically non-existent. Okay, here we have the percentages. So most of this pandemic, it's been about 1% of the people who get hospitalized with the illness are ages 0 through 4. Okay, 30 to 40%, even 50% are ages 65 plus. So everyone actually 18 and under, it's been about a 1% chance or less. Now, in recent months, that percentage has gone up significantly, interestingly, up to 4%. 4% of the people who are hospitalized in March, hospitalized with illness, were ages 0 through 4. I just think that's interesting timing as they are prepping a new needle for young kids, that all of a sudden the number of kids in the hospital with this illness is higher. But again, all those kids make it out of the hospital, except for 0.03%, as I recall, were the ones who did die with the illness. It is likely that they also had other underlying conditions. Oh, I actually did a poll on my Twitter to see how many of my viewers do plan to submit their kids for the new needle. Here it is. It says the needle for children under age 5 is expected to begin as early as June 21st. NBC reports, do you plan to needle your baby or preschooler? So I just did this an hour ago. Out of 1,000 votes I've got so far, 97% of my audience says no, they will not give their kid the needle. 1% have not decided yes or no yet. 1% said yeah. 1.5% say yes, they are going to give their kid the needle. Let's see the comments. Quote, my fat finger hit yes by accident. Sorry, but it's a no for our household. So some of those people who actually said yes, it was accidental. Pretty much my audience is not going to get the needle for their kids. Twitter, by the way, is a place where I have the most trolls, people who hate kind of what I'm reporting on. Basically, pro-needle people follow me the most on Twitter, but I do have a lot of anti-needle people on Twitter. But anyway, most people are saying, heck no. Heck no. Oh, I want to show you. So the last FDA advisory committee meeting, like I said, they've got several scheduled this month. The last one was in April, and I'll show you a little excerpt from that. Here it is. This is the New England Journal of Medicine doctor commenting. The meeting was whether, how much we need the boosters, how to get the right booster. It's all about boosters in the April meeting. And New England Journal of Medicine doctor was pushing back here to the FDA saying, okay, all this analysis you're presenting isn't very helpful. Here's what he said.
We don't really have a great, very specific level of antibody that correlates highly with protection. And Dr. Beigel, when you have those very complex figures, it's hard to know where on that surface that you're drawing protection is occurring. But that does make it very difficult to interpret these results. We know what kind of antibody response can be generated. We just don't know if it works.
I think it's a reasonable criticism, if you will. I didn't highlight it, but there was a gray plane across the middle.
Yada, yada, yada. Oh, that's a reasonable... Yeah, so even the New England Journal of Medicine is kind of pushing back on what the heck's going on with these boosters that the White House has been pushing even before the FDA could look at whether boosters were needed. The FDA was like, or the Biden was like, yes, boosters, and it caused several FDA staffers to resign, as you'll recall. Now, the latest hysteria is over monkeypox. Reporting today, still from Fox News, is that there are 21 cases of monkeypox, raising the alert level to level 2 alert. Oh my gosh, there's what they look like. Can you guys see that? They look pretty horrible. Here's the thing, reporting from CNBC is that the U.S. has more than 36,000 monkeypox needle doses immediately available in the national stockpile. So they're already disseminating. They feel like they have raised enough hysteria to get 36,000 needles in the arms of Americans who are scared of getting this monkeypox, even though it's a lot less transmissible than the new illness. Monkeypox has been around for a very, very long time, and it just has never, there's been little blurbs of hysteria about it before in my podcast. I think it was last week. I played a clip from Tucker Carlson 2017 when there was hype about it. It never went anywhere then. And it's likely not going to now, but they feel after this latest pandemic, people might be more scared. So they've got 36,000 doses of monkeypox needle to jab you up. But here's the thing. CNBC is also saying that the pharmaceutical company that our federal government is buying from, called Bavarian Nordic, they've also got 1 million U.S. owned doses and can fill another 16 million needles upon request by the federal government. So they just gave away that our federal tax dollars have already bought 1 million doses of this monkeypox needle. Why are we doing that? 1 million doses of the monkeypox needle. For what? There's 21 cases in America right now. Big breaking news that, one was found in DC today. You have to be in extremely close contact to someone. And the media is still reporting that the biggest group transmitting this is the gay community. So the concern is, we're in Pride Month right now. And so is it going to spread more because there's all kinds of gay festivities happening associated with Pride Month? Okay. I'm not concerned about monkeypox. I just don't see, I just think it's another one of these things like H1N1 and all this stuff where they tried to hype it up and it never went anywhere. But pharmaceutical companies looking to cash out, and you know what? They probably will because people are fearful. Okay, I never fully updated my audience on the World Health Assembly meeting that happened in May. There was a lot of concern about the United States giving away America's sovereignty to the World Health Organization's Director General. Turns out the update is that meeting was a big win for American and any nation's sovereignty. Basically, all those Biden administration amendments that were presented to the World Health Assembly in January were basically kicked out during the World Health Assembly meeting in Switzerland in May. I think it was largely the hype that did the organic spreading of the concern, largely through independent journalists, saying, hey, these amendments were presented, saying that the World Health Organization director can single-handedly say that there is an international health emergency without the rest of the nations agreeing that this is indeed a health emergency. And so that amendment and the other amendments America presented were thrown out, according to my friend James Roguski, another independent journalist who I've had on my show to break this down previous to that meeting. He analyzed this very closely. He watched how this all went down over a week's time at the World Health Assembly. And not only was the most concerning amendment thrown out, but the additional amendment that would have amended the timeline for future amendments, meaning in the future, if you throw in a sketchy amendment like that, it could get passed much more quickly. and perhaps more secretly, that was also thrown out. So it was great. It was a huge win for the public. It was interesting. He said that African nations objected to this amendment from the United States. It's just fascinating where we are as a planet where the United States is the one presenting amendments that give dictatorial power to someone, and it's the African nations who are fighting back and saying we don't want anyone to have any sort of dictatorship. So I linked James Roguski's Substack down below. Let me just read a little breakdown. So he said, spectacular news out of Geneva points to a complete and total victory for those who oppose the amendments to the international health regulation proposed by the Biden administration. Official delegates from wealthy developed nations like Australia, the UK, the European Union, and the United States spoke in strong support of the amendments and urged other states to join them in signing away their country's sovereignty. The first sign, however, that things might not be going the globalist way came when Botswana stated that they would be collectively withholding their support for the reforms, which many African members were very concerned about. Multiple other countries also said they had reservations over the changes and would not be supporting them either. These included Brazil, Brunei, Namibia, Bangladesh, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and Iran. Brazil in particular said it would exit WHO altogether rather than allow its population to be made subject to the new amendments. Fascinating stuff. So a big win for the people, something to feel positive about in regards to that. Okay. The next thing, okay, speaking of James Roguski, he's now converting his focus to the FDA and their meetings this month, and he's pretty concerned about it because these studies on these needles for little kids have not even been good. He breaks it down on his website, which I've linked down below. He says the Pfizer clinical trial in kids under 5, he says, failed in December 2021. He says Pfizer added a third needle, and that trial also failed in February, which is why they withdrew their application on February 10th. Now Pfizer is describing a jerry-rigged trial for a third needle in just 1,678 kids aged 6 months to 4 years. Pfizer has not disclosed how the kids were divided between the treatment and control group, so it's impossible to determine efficacy. Out of that sample, 10 developed the illness, although it is not clear how the 10 were distributed between the treatment and control group. So they're just messing around. He breaks it down with the Moderna one too. Apparently it's only 37 to 51% effective reportedly. He breaks this all down. He also, and my viewers always ask, well, what can we do about it? Because a lot of my viewers are now very skeptical of pharmaceutical companies for good reason, because these companies, there is a law on the books passed in 2005 which protects them from any liability. Literally, our Congress protected big pharma so that they can advertise any sort of pharmaceutical to you. You put it in your body, it doesn't go well, and then they are completely protected from liability. So why wouldn't they just, jerry-rig whatever, and do a ship-shot study and say it's great? The media puts their blinders on because they're getting ad dollars, and then you ended up taking it, and they are not liable whatsoever. So you guys always ask me, okay, what can we do about this? What can we do about this? Well, James, on his website, which I've linked down below, he has created a letter that you can send. He's laid it out who the key people to send it to in the FDA, as well as helping with the template of the letter, so it's easy for you to just send off a letter to FDA members to let them know your feelings about all this. So all that is linked down below. Also, got to let you guys know. I know you guys have been asking about these food plant fires. What the heck is going on with this? Well, there's another big one in Minnesota. Independent reporting: 50,000 chickens die in fire after accidental ignition at poultry houses. The local fire service said it was continuing to monitor the situation after it had put out the flames. Tens of thousands of hens have been killed in a huge blaze at a poultry farm. The fire had broken out a chicken house in Driffield, East Yorkshire. Oh, wow. Actually, this one is Yorkshire. This is in the United Kingdom. There's another one, a big one that happened in Minnesota. So these things are happening globally. I got this one confused because they're so similar. So these are happening now. It's hard to tell how big of a deal, how this compares to previous years, because factory fires have always been a thing. Factories there's so many ways for things to catch fire. And I have been on the ground at some of the big fires like this in previous years, and it's just hard to tell how much, this is, unique, whether there are more specifically food plant fires, because there's the other sort of factory fires are still continuing. I mean, I live in Houston, oil and gas central, and the oil and gas fires are still happening. Those factories that mess with processing petroleum, they're still catching fire too. So factories catch fire, and it's just hard to tell. I'm not convinced that anyone is specifically targeting these factories to create food shortages. That's just me being like, thinking, like taking a breath, stepping back and thinking logically, not jumping to conclusions, because I am a reporter who's been on the ground of a lot of disasters, including big fires like this, and they happen every year. And it's just hard to tell whether there's more of these, because it's easy in any year. You can go to Google, Google food plant fire, and you're going to see a whole list of food plant fires from, all over the place. You can try Googling any sort of fire, and it's going to bring, that's what Google does. It's going to bring a whole list. So it's going to make it look like something out of the ordinary. It's just hard to tell. Okay. I'm going to check out your comments. Thanks to Electrical Existence for the super chat. What do you know about the Frankfurt School? What do you think about the anti-white agenda? Well, I'm going to have to get back to you on the Frankfurt School, but the anti-white agenda is very interesting. Being a reporter on the ground covering crime, like I've always said, I was primarily a crime reporter throughout my 9-year corporate news career. And there was definitely a racial initiative in the news. News outlets wanted to hype up race issues associated with this, with crime. One of the last stories that I was sent out to cover before I left Fox was an officer-involved shooting. And as I was on the road, not even to the scene yet, my assignment manager called me and asked me for the races of those involved in this incident. Before I was even on the ground, what she wanted to know was the races of everybody, because they immediately wanted to create a narrative that this is about race without knowing any of the facts on the ground. Okay, so what that does, if the media keeps saying that crimes are about race when they are not necessarily, what that creates is a racial divide on both sides. Races, people of all races start to see this hysteria in the media, and they get bothered by it. And before you know it, people start to look through race-colored lenses due to media propaganda and start to dislike the other race. And it really seems like that has happened over the past decade, and it's really sad. So there is an anti-white and an anti-black agenda that has grown in the past decade since I started covering these sorts of crimes, as I can tell. Now, the reason that my assignment manager was asking me the races of the officer and the alleged suspect is that headquarters in New York wanted to know. Headquarters in New York wanted to know the race of this person who was shot in Houston, because that would determine whether they would make it national news. If it was a white officer and a black alleged suspect, they would blast that out on the national news. Everyone would pick it up nationally. If it was a white officer and a white alleged suspect, it does not become national news. If it's a black officer and a white alleged suspect, it does not become national news because it doesn't fit the hysteria agenda. There is a narrative out there that they want to jump into. Viewers are going to become hysterical if it's a white officer and a black alleged suspect. And the media wants their viewers hysterical because it leads to more clicks, more shares, more views, and therefore more ad dollars for the news. So in many ways, the news was incentivized by the prospect of financial gains if they could keep this narrative alive about black people or white people going out and killing black people. Okay. And it was a very misleading narrative because as the reporter on the ground, I was going to scenes where it was white on white, black on black, Hispanic on Asian. It was everything, but only the white guy going after the black guy is what made national news. So that was a deceptive media agenda that riled up people to join Black Lives Matter and created an unnecessary racial divide. So it's really frustrating to see. I've noticed that more white people and more black people have become racist by this incessant media narrative about racism. And for all those white people who became racist because they were so fed up with the media narrative about it, you're weak-minded AF and you're being controlled by the media. So cut out the BS racism. There's a lot of black people who are racist too. It's freaking uncalled for. Let's stop looking for race through race-colored lenses. It's gross and it's small-brained. Y'all have small brains if you look through race-colored lenses. Anyway, thanks to everyone for the comments. I went a little long. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe. And I'll see you guys later.